Thank you for that great introduction. My name, of course, is Stu, and this is my first public speech, and certainly a little nervous, but I hope you enjoy it. So I've been we just had the introduction with Carlos. He teaches me how to accept, live, love life, and smile at those things we cannot change. Carlos is my entire life. I'm sure many of you can relate. We married as soon as it was legal in New York City 9 years ago. Florida at the time was fighting gay marriage. So we went to New York, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever done. I never thought about marriage. And a matter of fact, speaking of that, the way I proposed was in Honolulu with Carlos, and we're walking down Waikiki Beach, and it came out by accident, "Would you marry me?" And Carlos says yes, and I'm a planned kind of guy, and I'm like, what just happened? And I will point out we've been together at that point 11 years, so honey, of course I'll marry you. And so we planned the New York City, and here we are. He's perfect for me, and I hope I am perfect for Carlos. I've learned since Carlos's diagnosis in the HD community is made of the most incredible, loving, helping, compassionate, fearless people I've ever met. And as a matter of fact, we just had a meeting and that came up. I come from a very small family. My mom, dad, no brothers, a couple cousins, but they're in Europe. And matter of fact, we didn't have many neighbors where I grew up in Connecticut. So what I have learned is the HD family is becoming my family. They're incredibly supportive, and they, like Carlos, put up with me. And who does that? Carlos, meanwhile, has a big family in Peru. I just unfortunately can't speak Spanish. I'm trying to learn, but I get distracted really easy, as Carlos will tell you, which is why he keeps an eye on me. So Carlos was diagnosed 3.5 years ago. We did not know HD was in his family. I knew 15 or 16 years ago something wasn't right. He was extremely clumsy, messy, driving wasn't great, and he spoke with a slurred speech. Welcome. And so I started chasing doctors a little bit and saying there's just something not right. And what are the great doctors doing? They're saying, oh, well, you should go see the Board of Ed, you should see this. So as time went on, yes, they gave him an MRI, and yes, we had a spinal tap done. I'll never do that to Carlos again. I just say because he got the spinal tap and I had him working the next day. And I've since had a spinal tap, and he shouldn't work the next day in my opinion. But I often say I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Shortly after diagnosis, Carlos was visiting his niece, who we grew up with in Peru. She's now in Baltimore. And as she dropped him off at the airport, she told me the story that she started crying, of course. And Carlos doesn't always say such adult things, but he looked at her and he said, "Don't cry for me. I am happy. I am here now, and I have hope they're going to save me." And he might be right. And he certainly is happy. So today, I'm asked to speak about public impact of HD. I'm not sure I'm the expert on this topic. Matter of fact, I'm fairly nervous, hence I've printed out some cheat sheets. But I figure I was selected because they perhaps didn't want a scientist, a doctor, someone in the medical field, or a professor. They wanted someone like me with some real life events. Not that the medical people don't have life events, but I'm hearing that they don't. And there's many stories on that, yes. So HD, one thing I have learned very quickly is, when I was thinking about what to write, is HD is very public, that's for sure. It's everywhere, and the stairs, the walk, the nose, the loss of friends, the driving, the work, just about everything, and you always have to keep an eye out. What I've learned from the community is, as I learn and I adjust to Carlos's needs and my needs, I realize they've all been there and done that. There's just no surprises with them. They give incredible advice. This tells me, ask questions from support groups, attend hype events, why we're here for today, seminars, conventions, and as you can not only learn, but support others that are struggling. I'm going to give you an example that just happened really recently. We belong to a support group that's now a Zoom event we'll go with Fort Lauderdale, but that's Miami, Florida. And we met in January a man named Doug, and he was really concerned about his friend named John. John had been successful in life, but was recently divorced. I don't know if he was homeless or he was about to be homeless, and things just were not going well. So he comes to our group and he asks, what can we do? We gave him recommendations on how to apply for Social Security disability, who could contact for housing. And also we spoke about these cards that explain I have HD. And if you like the different colors, there's blue or there's white, a couple little choices. That was in January. This 2 weeks ago, we had our Zoom event, and John was there in one state. Actually, he was in Naples, Florida, and his friend was in, I believe it was Michigan. And John spoke. We learned that he was crediting our group. Thanks to that Zoom call, he's now been approved for Social Security disability. He has housing. And guess what? He was pulled over by the police about 3 days earlier because he crossed the white line. He showed his HD card. The cop had not heard about HD, and the cop sent him on his way and said, thank you for letting me know this. We must always continue to raise public awareness. That's what I definitely know. So a couple topics I'll bring up. Driving. Anybody with Huntington's disease has probably covered driving. A person with HD will eventually lose their ability to drive. Matter of fact, we all will one day. Long prior to diagnosis, Carlos in 2006, so this shows how far this goes back, Carlos was pulled over and arrested for DUI. He blew alcohol 0. He did a urine test, no drugs, but he failed the cognitive test. I call it a cognitive test because if you ever watched a DUI test, touch this, walk like this is everything they can't do. Luckily, the prosecutor saw this arrest and threw it out no pros prior to ever getting to court. Now comes 2012. All pretty much the same exact thing. My background is I've been trained in law enforcement, and out of 2 states I've been a probation officer, a correction officer, a police officer. They never cover HD. And he again, negative alcohol. The cop actually did ask him, have you had anything to drink? And I know this because I'm watching the video. And Carlos says 2 drinks. Well, do you want to know what the 2 drinks were? They were Red Bulls. He was actually going out to the club. They were Red Bulls. And he kept using my name. Can you call Stu Hopper? Can you call Stu Hopper? He used to be in law enforcement, and the cop really didn't pick up on. Carlos was asking for help back then. He knew I would come there and I would explain, this is Carlos. This time we get to court, and the prosecutor's going for blood. He feels that he got away with a DUI previously. It's kind of crazy. Carlos arrived for court, and I had in my training, I never did it, but I was taught how to teach people courtroom presentation and testifying. And I had said to the attorney, should I say anything to Carlos? He says, no, what you've described and what I've seen with Carlos, let Carlos just be Carlos. The end result is the jury acquitted Carlos in under 2 minutes. They saw that something wasn't right, the slurred speech. And by the way, when they were asking Carlos, say your name, it was exactly the same as the cop. He was not saying his name. He almost sat in a wrong seat. He was confused, slow to answer, and that famous slurred speech that Carlos has had. The attorney said he was almost being bowed to for the next week because it was such a quick acquittal. But looking back, remember this is now coming, he was only diagnosed 3 years ago, the jury saw that he had something, and it's too bad law enforcement didn't. Maybe if law enforcement had some more training, they may have picked up on this. So the other issue that comes up is work. A person with HD may find it difficult to work. Carlos has a great job at a loved grocery store called Publix. Shortly after being hired, he was no longer able to work in the deli. Matter of fact, from what I've seen at delis, I'm not sure I'd be able to work in the deli. It's really difficult. There's all these hams and turkeys and this and that. So I had flashcards with Carlos, and I said, good luck with this. So they moved him to Bagger. And on the way to Bagger, he said to his boss, am I being fired? This was very upsetting for Carlos. And I got to say the testament to the boss. He said, we would never fire somebody. You're always smiling. You're always happy. Customers seem to come to see you. And I have to admit that on Facebook, people do actually post, it was great to see Carlos at work and so forth. Publix says, be happy. It's a pleasure to shop here. It's a pleasure for having Carlos work at that organization. He has his good days and bad days. And only just recently have I notified them with a letter that Carlos has a neurological condition. I learned from research I probably shouldn't say Huntington's disease because I'm concerned that certain employers, due to risk of falls, slips, and all these other things, it's illegal to discriminate for these diseases or handicaps, but in this case they may figure a way to do that. So I just went with a neurological condition. And I learned that actually from a Center of Excellence, which helped. Certain times people, before I gave the letter to let publics know, other employees would say, oh, you're having a bad day today, you don't want to work. No, that was the disease. His hours have gotten reduced. He lost his medical insurance, and then we gave the high cost of COBRA, which we're lucky to even have COBRA, but it certainly wasn't cheap. It went from $50 through your paycheck to $550 a month for COBRA. Friends. You make a lot of friends at work. He stopped developing friends, and really what I'll say is Carlos is my best friend, and I think I'm his best friend, and it works out quite well for us. But I do wish he had other friends, because he could complain about me. Who puts up with me? But he never does complain about me for some reason. He's just always so happy. It's incredible. Finances. We know people with HD may lose control of their finances. They need help. They may lose value for money and so forth. They can get taken advantage of financially. They lose their jobs. They have increased medical expenses. Carlos will ultimately retire by the end of this year. He will have no pension at a career that we thought he was going to be manager at one day. Welcome to HD. Our life in general. Slurred speech, walking, and messy. This makes it increasingly difficult to communicate with HD. We're out with friends, ordering food at a restaurant. Okay. It gets a little more difficult. Traveling. Carlos and I love to travel. What I do know is HD does not make traveling easier. We were on a boat in the Dominican Republic, and I had discovered a year before Carlos forgot how to swim. When I went off snorkeling, a lady instantly went and helped him, which I thought was amazing. The public are actually very helpful. We were coming through Mexico City and during the time of COVID, and you have to show the COVID test for Mexico, the COVID test for America, the passport, and the passport control people are looking at all these papers, and then you have to pull your mask down. And as soon as he did that, this lady stops and says, "Oh, the smile, you just made my day." It's infectious. 4 years ago, Carlos and I on a train, Rome to the airport. You gotta love this one. We'd missed our first train. So I'm sitting there exhausted. I have everything for Carlos. His wallet, his money, everything but his cell phone. I said, "Could you find out what time this train leaves?" Next thing you know, the train's pulling away. Where's Carlos? I don't speak Italian, but they're pointing at the door. He's gotten off the train. Oh my goodness. He did really well. He was able to call me on WhatsApp, which I'm not sure I knew how to do that. I told him, get on any train. I know there's a direct train. It was more expensive. We were trying to save money. He does arrive at the Rome airport before I do with 9 police officers, yeah, a whole bunch of trained people, and him saying his husband would be coming soon, which I'm thinking, husband? I don't know if this is good for the Italian police. Could you go with your best friend? But there we go. Last October, Puerto Vallarta, we had danced 3 hours the night away. Actually, he danced. I can't dance. But on the way home, the police will zero in on intoxicated people. And unfortunately, we had a pickup truck with 4 guns. They went right up to Carlos. Next thing, both of us are getting strip searched, this and that. It was really scary. I fought different things, but I don't want to fight the Mexican police. What was good was I kept saying he has Huntington's disease, please, Huntington's disease. Take me, do anything you want with me, but not Carlos. So they only asked him one question, do you speak Spanish? And he answered sí. And I'm showing him this card. I'm going to go back to this card again, this I have Huntington's disease. The cops must have stared 5 minutes at this. And it says I have slurred speech. I'll be slow to respond. Please bring me to the police, the hospital, or Stu Hopper. And they sent us on our way. They counted our money about 20 times. I'm glad they gave it all back. Oh, it's a great idea to put one in Spanish.
Especially in Southern California too.
Yeah. And a lady in the audience reminded me of something that I wanted to point out too. We were on a cruise recently, and we're just having sodas, and I noticed security building. 1, 2, 3. Carlos didn't notice this, but I did. And they're looking over and I'm like, oh dear, here we go again. Then they all left. I thought, okay, I'm paranoid. The next night, when we went to that same place to watch, a show and have a soda, one of them came up to me and says, you take great care of your partner. They've been trained in HD, or they knew something was happening. I thought it was a very powerful note. I want to share something from a book I read from Sharon Thompson. It's called Life Interrupted. Sharon is the Help for HD Director of Education and is unaware that I'm going to quote from this book, but I thought it was very powerful. It's the most powerful thing I've actually ever read or heard. To quote, Sharon says, people who have so courageously shared the stories within these pages are warriors, plain and simple. They fight the disease, they fight the stigma, they fight the medical establishment, they fight Social Security and other government agencies. As you hear, we fight the Mexican police too. They fight to advocate for themselves, for their loved ones, and for the community. They are fierce, they are strong, though they will be the first ones to tell you they're just doing what they have to do. I couldn't agree with that more. So, with that said, I want to thank you for listening to me. I hope you've enjoyed my topic. I applaud all of you for being here. May is Huntington's Disease Awareness Month. Let's never let them down. Give them support. Understand it's the disease. Times of turbulence and protection is what they need. Let's raise that public awareness. And remember those who we've lost. Hats off to all of you. A big thank you. And as Carlos would say, always smile. It is contagious. Thank you.